Ha 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 hi. All right, my babies. So, just a quick recap of the previous video. It was an off-script adventure, and it's a series right now because if you notice, a couple of my videos have off-script adventures within their basically name, and that's when I'm basically just randomly ranting about some stuff. And a rant is not necessarily something negative, but normally it's negative things that are coming out of us, and they translate differently and they become better. Anyways, while I'm better. As I was actually by the way, if I always look to the left, this is what's on my left. There's absolutely nothing, right? I just generally just look in that direction anytime I'm thinking. I read somewhere that when somebody is looking at to their left and up, they're kind of like creating something. That's how the mind works. And if you're looking to your left and down, you're not creating something, you're kind of like revisiting a memory. But when it comes to the right, you're kind of like articulating something that you already know, and right down is probably just an emotion that you're kind of like reflecting on. It's like in the eyes somewhere. I'll actually find it in a bit and I'll like get back to you. But let me basically recap what happened in the previous video. One, I said two things that I felt were profound. Profound, not profound. Profound. And ultimately, I separated the difference between because like sometimes we have things in our lives that we kind of like ignore or disregard or any whatever you want to explain them. But what happens is we practically just kind of like avoid approaching them. So there are three things that I actually like highlighted, which is basically you notice them, you engage with them, and you interact with them. And any one of them is the start for the other, right? Because like you can engage with them, but it could be a horrible engagement. But at the very least, like that means you notice them and you acknowledge them and you're trying to do something. And then basically you notice them differently, you engage with them differently, and eventually like basically interact with them differently. But noticing them means you acknowledge that they're there. Engaging with their presence acknowledges it means that you're acknowledging them and you're accepting them. And interacting with them means fully taking responsibility for their existence. And that's basically like, I think that's kind of like not the three-step way, but the three things we kind of like do, and we either do them all together or we basically just like kind of like do one and then go take a step back and do another and like kind of create a better comfort zone around them in order for us to kind of tackle them. Yeah, my rant was about me failing in something, so like, yay. Anyways, my other one is basically what does taking a step back truly mean? And weirdly so, I kind of separated it into mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because mentally separating from something and emotionally separating from something and physically separating from something are very much separate, different things. But what we do normally is we physically step away from a situation and then basically we try to like process it mentally. But the mentally and the emotionally have to always be like physically we're fully in charge of, even if unless we're in a cage, but still like we're kind of like able to separate ourselves physically from normal like daily activities. But what happens is basically like you kind of have to separate yourself from all three states because mentally is a state, emotionally is a state, physically is a state. You have to separate yourself from in all three states from basically anything that you're trying to kind of like look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And while I was doing that, it kind of like clicked because that's basically what gratitude does, that's what prayer does, that's what meditation does. And I basically thought it was like decent enough for me to kind of like just write it down and feel proud of myself. Yay! In case you guys are wondering, I'm looking at the chart. So upper left, when it comes to if you're looking up, your eyes are looking up, you're basically, that's what you do when you smell. I think that's why most people go like this. Like the eyes go up, but the lids go down because like you're actually pulling up from the abdomen. If you're looking down, that's when you're tasting. That's basically that how the brain basically focuses on like these different activities. Upper left is external memory or internal memory. Upper right is construction of visual images and symbols. Lateral left is auditory. Lateral right is construction of sounds and words. Lower left is emotional memory and feelings. Lower right is emotional memory and body sensation recall. So basically, right side is construction and the left side is basically just kind of like memory. And construction, so anytime you're talking to somebody and you see them kind of like looking up to the right, they're probably lying. Yep, because they're constructing like visual images and symbols. So they're not processing something that's already there, they're creating something new. All right, now that I said that, back to today's video. 5 minutes and a half. Today's video is about an anime I watch and a super basically, or a skill that's called full control encounter. Now, fun part about this anime, it's basically one of those isekai you basically get stuck in a game. Or yeah, it's not moving to isekai is moving to a new world or reincarnated in a new world. This one is kind of getting stuck in a game. So what happened is basically everyone was playing a game and then suddenly they can't look up. A lot of animes are like that. So one of the people in the game actually has a skill called full control encounter. And control encounter does one thing that's beautiful. Uh, it tracks all of his partners or whoever's basically engaging with that, whoever formed an agreement with him. It gives them an overview of all their skills and everything that's practically like useful when it comes to a strategic sense, especially when it comes to battle. And that skill, basically, what it does is allows him to make decisions based on everyone's strengths and weaknesses. Naturally, granted, because I am actually working on my own personal endeavor and my startup, what's happening is I'm attracted to these things because like working with people means you kind of like have to like notice when they're good, when they're in a good place, when they're not in a good place, their positions relative to their work, their their like everything about their personality, everything about their character, that to engage with them in that kind of way, you kind of need that awareness that's connected to the people that at the very least matter. And super fun to think about these things as skills, naturally, because I want to gamify society. Because like looking at these things as skills, ultimately kind of like show you how basically how the higher, I don't want to say higher ups, but how the people in the positions that are in control of these things kind of have that these skill sets that are basically like overviewing others, interacting with others, and kind of like creating a creating a dynamic structure for everyone to always fall in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And so with that, there's a whole lot of things that are basically like just uh, it's really just the feedback loop that expands not on one person or one subject, on almost everything. And it kind of allows you to be one of those like, oof, I'm getting stuck in my thought. So a feedback loop that connects to many people, you're always getting different feedback. So ultimately, I have to think of this skill as a way of categorizing people's strengths and weaknesses and powers and dynamics and energy levels and basically abilities, skills. All of these need to be kind of allocated in my head in a certain particular way that allows for a certain decision making process, or at the very least that allows me to kind of move because I don't want to make a decision on their behalf. I need to be able to like move the flow of things so they can make better decisions. Need to, should, want, these are words that I don't really like. But that's basically how to compartmentalize the skill, which is probably why I wrote it down because I wanted to think about it out loud. And ideally, like once the intention is there, then your mind kind of like starts processing things differently. But that's basically it, right? Because the easiest way for something to happen is not by force. The smoothest way for something to happen is with efficiency, not effectiveness. And so, like, if I were to be, when I am to be like in a position that has a couple of people that need to kind of like fulfill specific duties, a skill like full control encounter would allow my decisions towards what's going to happen to be specifically highlighted by the capabilities of others and our ability to reach them, which gives me a different perspective towards goals, or at the very least removes the bias that I have towards goals. Because ultimately, then I'm always creating a flow that is very much achievable and we can build on top of, because you're utilizing the dynamic that everything you're capturing the dynamic and utilizing it in a way that allows everyone involved to basically just excel beyond whatever it is they believed in the beginning. And that's specifically because you're removing you're kind of removing the barriers and using them to create support. Why the fuck not? It's a video. Peace.